All right. Today, we're jumping headfirst into one of the most powerful psychological novels ever written. I'm talking, of course, about Fyodor Dostoevsky's masterpiece, Crime and Punishment. And really, when you boil it all down, the entire book is built around one single, absolutely terrifying question.
Right there. That's it. That question, that's the engine of the entire story. It's this huge, seismic idea that Dostoevsky basically detonates right on the first page. And you know what? It frames everything that's about to happen. So in this explainer, what we're going to do is unpack the incredibly high-stakes philosophical experiment that's really at the heart of this novel. Because look, this isn't just a crime story. Not at all. It's about what happens, the catastrophic fallout, when an idea tries to become more important than a human conscience.
So, let's start with the man and his dangerous idea. Our journey really begins inside the head of our man guy, a student named Raskolnikov. And let me tell you, he is not in a good place. He's half-starved, almost delirious, and he's wandering the hot, sticky streets of St. Petersburg, all while nursing this idea, this theory that's sharp enough to draw blood.
See, what's driving Raskolnikov isn't simple greed or rage. No, it's way bigger than that. It's a whole philosophical framework. And this wasn't just some random thought he had. This kind of thinking was electrifying young intellectuals all over 19th century Russia. It's this form of radical nihilism that basically says, hey, history is pushed forward by extraordinary people. You know, think of someone like Napoleon. And these people, they have the right, maybe even the duty, to step over blood, to break the rules if it helps achieve some higher purpose.
And this is how he justifies it. To put his big theory to the test, he picks a target, an old pawnbroker, a woman he literally calls a louse. So in his twisted logic, he's not murdering a person. He's killing a principle he finds useless. It's all just a way for him to prove he's one of those extraordinary men. He's completely turned a living, breathing human being into just an idea.
So the theory is now on trial. And what this means is that the whole plot of the book becomes this violent real-world experiment. Raskolnikov isn't just committing a crime here. No, he's putting his entire worldview, his whole philosophy, on trial for its life.
And Dostoevsky structures this whole experiment with, incredible precision. You can really think of it as a four-part journey, a descent and then an ascent. First, you've got the idea itself, born in his tiny, coffin-like apartment. Then comes the crime, the moment his theory smashes into the real world of flesh and blood. What follows isn't some great escape. It's a complete psychological implosion. And then finally, we get to the long, hard climb back towards some kind of spiritual redemption.
Which brings us to what's left, a mind in ruins. So the experiment is done, the crime is committed, what happens now? Does he feel powerful, like he proved his point? No way, not even close. The immediate result is an absolute, catastrophic failure of his own mind.
So the big result of his grand experiment wasn't power. It was this psychological maze of fever, paranoia, and just pure self-hatred. See, Raskolnikov's real punishment isn't the police, it's not the courts, at least not at first. It's all internal. It's his own guilt, and it basically becomes this living thing that's hunting him down. His own mind turns into a prison. And what this proves is that you don't need cops to enforce moral law. It's already written deep inside the human soul.
And this line from the book just says it all, doesn't it? It perfectly captures the core paradox here. In trying to prove he was this extraordinary man, above it all, Raskolnikov just completely shattered his own soul. The argument Dostoevsky is making is that the real victim of this crime is the murderer.
All right, so now we have a collision of souls. Because Raskolnikov isn't just left to rot alone in that prison he built for himself. Oh no. Dostoevsky brings in these incredibly powerful characters who are basically living, breathing examples of different moral paths. And they absolutely force him to face just how empty his theory really is.
And the first, and honestly the most important of these characters, is Sonia. You could say she's the novel's spiritual opposite to Raskolnikov. She's been forced into prostitution just to feed her family, so she represents this idea of redemptive suffering. He's all about intellectual pride and being alone. She is all about humble faith and human connection. And what she offers him isn't another clever theory, it's a way back, a path back to being human.
And then you've got Svidrigailov. Now this guy, he's like Raskolnikov's dark mirror image. He's what Raskolnikov was trying to be, a man who genuinely believes everything is permitted and feels absolutely zero guilt about it. But here's the kicker. His path doesn't lead to some kind of ultimate freedom. It leads to total despair, a complete spiritual dead end. It's Dostoevsky's way of showing that a life without a conscience isn't freedom. It's just nothing.
So where does this all lead? To the idea of redemption through suffering. The novel's final conclusion is, well, it's difficult and it's profound. The question is, how do you even begin to crawl your way back from a moral pit that deep? And for Dostoevsky, let's just say the answer is not easy.
And who provides the answer? It's Sonya, of course. And listen, she doesn't give him some loophole or an easy out, not a chance. She tells him straight up, the only way to heal your soul is to accept your punishment, to embrace suffering, not as just a penalty, but as something you have to go through to be purified.
So, when he finally confesses and gets sent to a prison camp in Siberia, that's not the end of his story. Actually, it's the beginning of his real story. Because it's only there, once he's been stripped of all his pride, all his theories, that he can finally start to heal. It's like Dostoevsky says, life had stepped in place of theory. In the end, it's love and human connection that win out over cold, empty ideas.
And that's exactly where Dostoevsky leaves us. There's no neat little bow at the end. Instead, we're left with just the first flicker of a moral resurrection. What he's suggesting, I think, is that real redemption isn't some final destination you get to. It's the start of a whole new story, a lifelong, painful, and in the end, beautiful journey back to being alive.